So it's a pleasure to welcome here to this third conversation of today, Simona Malvezzi and Roberto Gigliotti. So I will just start with a kind of mean question that is, can you both introduce yourself for us? I will start with Simona.
I'm Simona Malvezzi, a co-founder of Malvezzi, a Berlin-based architectural studio. And what can I say, we are specialized in museum exhibition spaces, we work with contemporary art. And we are proud to say that we are doing invisible architecture because we are putting an artwork in front of the space.
I'm Roberto Gigliotti. I'm teaching at the Free University of Bolzano, exhibit design. I'm an architect. My story is quite, it's not a sort of linear story because I started as an architect, wanted to become a landscape architect. I co-grounded an exhibition space, a project space in Bolzano named Lungomare, and somehow this story about educating, teaching started a couple of years ago, and now I'm teaching at the university.
Thank you. So I would love to start this kind of match with somehow you two talking about dreams or talking about future. You are both somehow involved in designing space, exhibiting design, architecture, and somehow even education system. So I'd love to ask you, starting again, you decide, maybe with Simona again, how is going to be the school of your dreams, so how do you imagine the school of the future?
Yeah, the school of the future, I don't like to talk about future, but I like to talk about past. Okay. About Z33 project, Hotel Finfeld in 1965, where he imagined a kind of sort of network instead of a building for a school in an ex-pottery industrial field, abandoned industrial field. So we were asked for the Freeze magazine to imagine a new Kunstakademie for Berlin. And referring to the Z33 project, we also imagine a network of existing sites that could be a learning networks. In Berlin we have two art academies, so we imagine to use them, but at the same time use libraries, bookshops, galleries, art spaces, museums, and also magazine, editorial office, and architectural office, in which the student can move from one place to another place, doing a project, and learning by doing, learning by working, which means I'm not talking about exploitation of student work, because we in our office we have a lot of students working for us for 6 months, and it costs a lot in terms of teaching them something that we have a feedback from the students, from them. I think we are trying to do a curatorial design, which means not build a building, but a reinterpretation of existing places that could be perceived in another manner and put in a very different context. This kind of network.
Okay, so I mean, this kind of proposal, that is going to be published soon on the March, April issue of Freeze
magazine,
Germany. It's about, so you said, not building somehow construction, just putting in networks, different kind of cultural institution of Berlin, and allowing or just suggesting to the students to...
The starting point is the failure of the Kunsthalle, which means the failure of the building as an image building without content. That was a problem. So on this base, we imagine not to build a new institution for the academy, but to use what you already have in Berlin. And could be really a network of a learning lab network.
Okay.
But at the same time, the Kunsthalle could be a part of the network.
Of the system.
Again, of the system.
Roberto?
Well, I really appreciate Simona's position. I'm not very far away from that. If you ask me how should the space of a future university look like, then I would say that I prefer to talk about a place and not a space in a more general way. I think that it doesn't matter at all the way the places where we study, where we teach look like. It's much more about an experience, about sharing knowledge, about getting new knowledge. So, and fill the space. And the less the space is going to condition the opportunity to fill it, the better it is. So there is more space for developing new interventions and so on. I kind of make this experience every day in the university where I teach. Is a sort of over-designed building, and what I notice is that every time we try to get out of the classrooms and put something, even in the corridor, it doesn't function at all, because the space is not allowing that. The space is already finished, is extremely smooth, it doesn't have any kind of ruvidity allowing them to put things, to intervene, to stop, to talk about the things we are doing at the university. So, in my point of view, it's much more a space where relations could happen. Personal relations, but even relations between knowledge, books, other kind of devices and the persons that are in the university. And at the same time, I agree that the main risk trying to give a significant form to the places where, to the university or the places of study, the main risk is that it sort of take it a wrong way. It's about branding study, and I personally don't care about branding that, and it's much more about what do I take with me as a teacher or as a student when I leave this place and I go home and I can keep thinking about the things we did there, or even leaving there, staying there overnight, 24 hours a day, and kind of inhabiting the places of the study places.
Sure. So we are talking about no space in a way, and network, putting different kind of spaces in the network. During the conversations in these days, a lot of panelists talked about the idea of failure in a way. So allowing the student, to have the chance to make mistakes, no? So referring to what Simona was telling, this idea of learning by doing. How do you manage this kind of condition? The fact that if you are somehow appointing a student to work for you and at the same time learning or trying to do something, it's a little bit risky to think about that a mistake can be a mistake of your office in a way, or just a problem. So how can you manage this kind of borderline between practicing and having the chance to make a mistake as a student?
We are really aware about this possibility. So for us, it's a failure and it's a risk that we take. And it's a condition. We are not afraid of that.
Okay.
Because I already said that we learn from the student again. So they bring new ideas, and that's why we are very convinced of this kind of new possibility learning system, which does not mean fusion of the different sides, but kind of because you can recognize, each space remains what it is, and the challenge is really a challenge because also the professor is not a professor who is like a guru who is teaching what he knows, but himself he doesn't know what happens if you bring an architectural student to an exhibition space and to see what happened there. I like the fact that you can have the risk, because this is the challenge, and to use the risk again with a different perception by learning something else.
Yeah. Roberto, do you have kind of reaction to that?
My reaction to the issue of the failure is difficult because and we were talking about in the talks before today. We come here to Milan, see many beautiful, nice, okay projects, but most of them are closed, are ended. They already get a finish, and it's kind of difficult to during the teaching process to convince the students that in order even to get to a final project, you have to accept mistakes. You have to do mistakes. Even the most perfect project that we can see here during the show probably are part of a process where scratches have been thrown away and so on. So for me, that's one of the main important things of the teaching I'm doing, to accept the failures and not aiming to a final project or a definite project, but make the process the main important part of the production of the final object or what it is. And we do failure as well. I have to admit that we as teachers, and I really like to do this kind of job because it's a never-ending job if you keep learning. A failure I keep doing is we work normally with groups to find the right way to animate the students to feel being part of a group in order to have a shared aim. Sometimes you just lose them on the way, or or I am suddenly bored of what we are doing. These are the kind of things that, in my point of view, in a very emotional and personal way, are part of not just of the teaching process, but even of any design process. To find a way of always keeping a sort of enthusiasm and never getting bored of what you are doing.
Yeah, I mean, so I tried to make another step. No, we started from a dream or just a possible structure. You mentioned the possibility of having no structure or no space, and then trying to the idea of network and the idea of failure that is part of the idea of living. You mentioned inhabiting, the school building. So just trying to also, build yourself, no? I'm just referring to the idea of also the curatorial school, no? There's curatorial school somehow to me is like kind of strange phenomenon because they, recently appear on the scene, and from one end they are a strange mixture of different kind of disciplines, It seems like you cannot really teach, art, but you cannot really teach curatorial practice. I'm just wondering, what kind of, Simona before was mentioning that to teach to students in design and a Kunsthalle, you have to maybe send into a gallery to see how the real art piece is going to be in order to really practice the profession of the art system. So I'm just wondering, in your opinion, which are, the kind of all the systems that are around the teaching practice. I'm just wondering, with Gianluigi Recuperati and Andrea Branzi during the first day, we were talking about that maybe to teach someone to make an art piece, you have to, teach him music, you know what I mean? So, or just cinema, or just all the disciplines that are around. So, what are the relations between the work that is outside the school and how you're dealing with it, and then the practice, the technical practice that is maybe taught inside in the building? It's kind of an open question. I don't know if either right or it's still open.
Well, as I told before, since the structure of the teaching and learning space should be open, I prefer not to think about an inside and an outside. And exactly the way you said, is a sort of vice versa influence between what's outside getting in, and of course then it comes to the moment of the presentation, which is an input in the other direction. But these relations that we're talking about are of course not closed within a sort of box, and I don't care which color this box is a white box or a cube. Is about is about trying to find holes and elements where you can get outside and come in, and try to understand the whole structure as a very open one and sort of permeable.
Sure.
You were talking about curatorial at school, and I think curating is a very hard job. How can you teach curatorial practice?
Yeah.
So in this time, you see that a curator are not more curator. The curator becomes artist, artist becomes curator, architect becomes artist, and so on. So I find interesting this kind of not to be one thing and try to put yourself, as I already said, in this challenge field. And we, as architects, we are also autodidact, I can say, because we put at the very beginning of our practice, and we put ourselves in a field that we didn't really, we haven't really studied, so the art field. We were very interested in this field. That's why we are doing now what we are doing. But I like the idea of autodidact. I can say in English.
Yes.
So
learner. Yeah, I would say something like.
And not institutional learner.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but we should go.
And this is again this idea of move from one space to another space and do kind of project in field that you don't know.
Okay.
Because this is also the reality, you know. Now you are at the university, it's kind of cage. You are protected. You are a student. You feel free. And I think most of the students are afraid of the failure again, and they don't put themselves in a challenge. So.
Thanks a lot. I think we just opened the topic of being institution and being beyond institution, and it's quite interesting. I mean, thinking in our system nowadays, because it seems that the art academies from below, it's a kind of phenomenon that is coming back days. And I mean, the main Z33 has been a sort of a big example of making an exhibition as a learning process, and it's quite interesting to think that kind of structure, no institution are becoming sort of the institution nowadays, or the structure. So maybe we could just, I don't know, close. Sorry, I mean, if you have something as a latest statement, and then we go to have a sandwich together.
Don't study architecture.
Not study architecture, okay, that's a good one.
I have a question.
Sorry?
I have a question.
Good. That is the best way to go.
According to your question about curating and curatorial studies, what I'm thinking about, and I don't have an answer, is the curator is an expert in curating or an expert in the field he's talking about. So
this is also a good one. I think two great questions close this session. Thanks a lot to Simona Malvezzi and Roberto Gigliotti. Thank you very much.